This is the new Polestar 4 and it's a fully electric SUV with no rear window. There is still a rear view mirror, but you can see it's actually an HD screen that displays a live camera feed from a roof-mounted camera at the back of the Polestar 4. And Polestar says this results in a wider view out the back of the car than what you'd get if you just had glass there. You can adjust the brightness, you can adjust the angle of it as well, and you can also deactivate it to turn it back into a mirror to see your passengers in the rear. But what else do you need to know about the new Polestar 4? Well, it's the latest electric car from Swedish brand Polestar, which is owned, of course, by Volvo. And it follows the Polestar 1, the Polestar 2, and you've guessed it, the Polestar 3. Despite what you might guess from the numbers, this is actually positioned between the Polestar 2 and the Polestar 3, both in terms of size and price. And this isn't just a coupe version of the Polestar 3, it's very different from that car. Not just in terms of the way that it looks, but it's also built on a completely different platform as well. And you can see it is a pretty big SUV. It's not particularly tall by SUV standards, but it takes up more room on the road than something like a Tesla Model Y. And this 2.2-ton SUV will count the Model Y as a key rival, as well as other electric SUVs like the Jaguar I-Pace and the recently revealed electric Porsche Macan. Inside the Polestar 4, you've got this really interesting layout here. So this high center console makes you feel quite enclosed, gives it a bit of a sporty feel as well. You've got this new 15.4-inch touchscreen infotainment system for Polestar as well. Now, in all other Polestar models, you've had a portrait layout for the touchscreen, but now this is landscape, but it does still look familiar to other Polestar systems, even though it's got this different orientation. So you can see you've got similar graphics to what you've seen before on the Polestar 2 and what you find in the Polestar 3. It all responds fairly promptly to your touch inputs, and it's an Android-derived infotainment system, which means that you get things like Google Maps and Google Assistant built in. Google Assistant is particularly useful because it means you get a voice control system that actually works and can do things. Loads of other manufacturers that don't use Google software are much more hit and miss in their voice control success inside. What is a shame with this infotainment system though is the fact that Polestar's gone to the effort of giving us a dial down here on the center console, but the only thing it can do is control the volume or pause or play whatever you're listening to. So it is a shame they haven't built in some functionality to enable it to control parts of the infotainment system. And yes, there are climate controls, but they're on the touchscreen only again. It would be much better to use from a functionality perspective if you had separate physical controls to be able to use them. In terms of other tech in here, you've got a driver monitor system, and you've got a 10.2-inch fully digital driver display, and in the UK, as standard, you'll have a head-up display as well. And that head-up display will, very important for a Swedish manufacturer, have a snow mode, which changes the colour of the text on the head-up display from white to yellow, so it's easier to see. Now, there is a really nice high-quality look and feel in here. Polestar have always delivered really nice interiors, and this is no different. So you've got a choice of two different interior colours. You can have this light colour scheme that we've got here, or there's also a dark one that you'll be able to choose from as well. And all the materials feel very nice. It all feels very solidly put together. It is really classy inside, just like it is in other Polestar models. It's also quite practical up front as well. In the center console at the top here, you've got a handy tray for your wireless phone charging. You've got two cup holders, a nice big armrest with some more storage underneath it as well. And because this center console bit is kind of floating, it means underneath it, you've also got even more storage. You've got decent door bins as well. So really, it does seem that in a lot of areas, this is a very impressive interior up front. Now, Polestar says that having no rear window back here gave them more options when it came to the packaging of this rear seat area. And in lots of ways, it's a big benefit for back here in terms of the sitting position and the overall space that they've been able to give it. So is that true? Well, certainly in terms of space, it's very impressive back here. This is a car with a wheelbase, that's the distance between the front and rear wheels, which is almost 3 meters, which is equivalent to a Range Rover. So legroom is very generous indeed. The sitting position itself though is slightly odd because the rear bench does feel quite low relative to the floor, which feels quite high, so your knees are quite high up. But in terms of headroom, it's very good back here. Yes, you have got that sloping roofline, but you can see I've still got some clearance above my head. And you can also adjust the angle of the backrest. But if you put it back as far as it will go and you put your head on the headrest, then that is where, if you're particularly tall, you might just find your head touching the roof lining at the back there. But if you have it in a more upright position, then that isn't a problem at all. Another benefit of having no rear window back here is the fact that Polestar's been able to put in some fancy ambient interior lighting there instead, which does give this kind of a booth feel rather than the rear seat of a car. You might though be a bit concerned about whether enough light comes in back here, and is this a very dark interior? Well, you get a sunroof as standard, which stretches further back than it would if there was some rear glass back there. You also get fairly big rear windows here, but it's difficult to judge whether it is very bright and airy in here because obviously we're inside, so we can't actually tell. But still, the ambient interior lighting is nice. And something else good back here is the fact you have this touch screen, which lets you control the climate back here. You can also control some media functions as well. And even though this might look like a 4-seat layout, this can fold back up to reveal that it is in fact a 5-seater. So it does seem pretty decently practical back here. So no rear window, no problem. We'll have to see what it's like when we get a chance to drive this thing before we can really say. But now, the boot. It has this fairly wide and big hatchback opening, which should be practical when you're loading things into and out of the boot. And in terms of overall capacity, there are 526 litres on offer in the back of the Polestar 4, which is very similar to the new Macan, but quite a bit down on what a Tesla Model Y offers. The Polestar 4 figure also includes 31 litres of underfloor storage, which you can see down there. And it also gets this height adjustable boot floor as standard, although you can see in its lowest position, there is a bit of a step at the back of the boot there. You can split fold the rear seats 60-40, and if you do want to put loads of stuff in the boot, then you can remove this panel on the top there to make it easier to do that. There is also a front boot which offers 15 litres of storage, which isn't a lot, but is still just about big enough for a charging cable. The alloys, by the way, range from 20 to 22 inches in size, and you'll get Pirelli or Michelin tyres depending on spec. There are two different versions of the Polestar 4. You can buy a long-range single-motor Polestar 4 or a long-range dual-motor Polestar 4. And if you go for the single-motor version, then as you might imagine, it gets one electric motor driving the rear wheels, and the dual-motor version adds another electric motor driving the front wheels. And if you go for a dual-motor Polestar 4, you will be getting the fastest production car that Polestar has developed to date. It has 536 brake horsepower, and the claim 0 to 62 miles an hour time is just 3.8 seconds, which might not be quite as quick as the recently revealed 3.3 second electric Macan, but still sounds quick enough. Both versions of the car get a 100 kilowatt-hour battery with a usable capacity of 94 kilowatt-hours. So, the dual motor not only offers incredible acceleration, but it also has an impressive 360-mile claimed range. It includes a range driving mode, which can disengage the front electric motor to aid efficiency. The single motor Polestar 4 gets 268 brake horsepower, and while it might not be as quick as the dual motor version, it can travel a bit further on a full charge, with the official range putting it at 376 miles. A heat pump comes as standard on both models, which should help heating the interior in an efficient way in cold conditions. As for charging, the maximum charging rate it can accept is a decent 200 kilowatts. It can also AC charge at 22 kilowatts. And it will come with vehicle-to-load functionality. That means you'll be able to buy an adapter to plug into the charging socket, which then lets you use the car's battery to power other things like a laptop or a kettle. That won't be available at launch when the Polestar 4 hits the roads later this year, but it should be added to the lineup a little further down the line. There won't, though, be any different versions of the car arriving. There will be standard range models in other markets, but they won't be coming to the UK. And there aren't currently any plans for other versions to be released here either. But Polestar is very confident of what the 4 offers, and it's expected that this will become the Swedish brand's most popular, best-selling product. It won't be flying off the shelves because of cheap pricing, though. The entry-level Polestar 4 will cost the same as a range-topping Model Y Performance, at £59,990. But the dual-motor version costs £66,990, which actually undercuts the entry-level I-Pace and the new Macan. So, it's quick, it can travel far on a full charge, it seems pretty nice inside, and it's in a popular part of the market. The Polestar 4 could prove to be a big hit, even without a rear window. Thanks for watching this first look of the new Polestar 4. If you want to see another video, then click there. And if you want a great deal on your next car, visit our website, whatcar.com, by clicking there.